World leaders are putting their knee on Donald Trump's neck and pressing down, harder than ever before. You need to look at what is actually happening right now, not the sanitized version on cable news. Additional troops are being deployed to Greenland as we speak. Look at the images of a military transport aircraft landing at Nuuk Airport in Greenland, carrying fully equipped German soldiers. And it's not just Germany. Troops from France, Norway, the United Kingdom, and Sweden are conducting joint military exercises on Greenlandic territory. What are they training for? They are preparing for a potential invasion by the United States itself. Let that sink in. Our closest allies, the same nations that have fought and bled alongside us for 70 years, are now pointing their weapons in our direction to protect an island from the madness of the American president. This past Thursday, they met with the Joint Arctic Command, received intelligence briefings on Greenland and Arctic operations, and then ran scenario simulations of a U.S. landing. Europe is ready, and they are thoroughly prepared. We've shown you the speeches from leaders like French President Emmanuel Macron. If you remember 2025, Macron may have tried to appease Donald Trump or buy time, but by 2026 the language has completely changed. Macron now says plainly, we must instill fear, we must inflict pain, we must make them afraid of us, because that is the only language they understand. And frankly, that is how you have to deal with Donald Trump, because he is fundamentally pathetic, a weak man hiding behind the image of a strong one, someone you must stand up to, because if you give him an inch, he will take your entire life. This shift is not accidental. It is the result of the world realizing that America under Trump is no longer a superpower that upholds order, but a threat that must be contained. They are no longer laughing at him behind closed doors. They are openly confronting him to his face. And what is Trump doing? He is completely isolated. While he threatens tariffs against anyone who refuses to support this deranged invasion, new alliances are forming without the United States. You are watching the collapse of America's global leadership in real time, and the cost of that collapse will be paid by you. But the threat doesn't come only from Europe. Look north to our closest neighbor, Canada. Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, has just made a strategic move that can only be described as a knockout punch to the American economy. While Trump is busy with tweets and empty threats, Carney was in Beijing signing a $1 trillion trade agreement with China. Pay close attention because this directly affects your wallet. The deal allows Chinese electric vehicles to flood into Canada, while China in return commits to buying massive quantities of Canadian canola. Why does this matter? Because it represents a potentially devastating blow to the U.S. auto industry. Canada is opening a back door for cheap Chinese technology and products to enter the North American market, undermining the trade barriers and protectionist walls the United States is desperately trying to build. Carney executed this brilliantly. He didn't destroy Canada's auto industry. He reshaped it to maximize leverage against the United States. The message is unmistakable. If America refuses to play fair, Canada has other options, and those options are called China. Carney has spoken about protecting Greenland with cold, unwavering resolve, stating clearly that Greenland's future belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark. He reminded the world that Canada is a NATO partner and stands firmly behind its obligations under Article 5 and Article 2. That means if Trump orders an attack on Greenland, Canada will stand with Denmark, not with the United States. Imagine that scenario. The longest peaceful border in the world becoming a line of hostility. Meanwhile, Macron continues to emphasize that, to be free, one must be feared. He has accelerated plans to raise France's defense budget to 64 billion euros by 2027 instead of 2030. Specifically so, Europe is not overtaken by the decisions of one person or another for the sake of convenience. He is talking about Trump. Macron is building an independent European military capability, one that does not rely on the United States because Europe no longer trusts Washington's judgment or reliability. They are preparing for a world in which America is either an adversary or at best an unstable partner. And all of this is unfolding while Trump remains delusional enough to believe he can bully the world into submission with 25% tariffs. The criticism is no longer coming only from political opponents, but from some of the most loyal former allies themselves. Aurora Jolin, speaking from Nuuk, Greenland, shared powerful remarks from the Speaker of the Danish Parliament and former Defense Minister Søren Gade. Gade wrote on Facebook that he has fundamentally changed his view of the United States because of the tone of the current administration, saying, "I never thought I would speak critically of the United States, but if I want to be able to look Danish veterans in the eye in the future, I can no longer remain silent." He described Trump and today's United States as indecent, stating that the tone of the American government is unacceptable and that he barely recognizes the America he once loyally supported. These are painful words coming from a friend, and when you lose the respect of people like Søren Gade, you have lost your moral foundation on the international stage. Meanwhile, Trump's propaganda machine continues as if nothing is wrong. His spokesperson, Caroline Leavitt, casually speaks about forming a working group to discuss the purchase of Greenland, referring to technical negotiations every 2 to 3 weeks, as if they were talking about acquiring an office building rather than the sovereignty of a nation and the lives of 60,000 people. She insists that the president's priority is acquiring Greenland for national security reasons, an arrogance that is staggering. They believe they can simply walk in and take what they want, and when they are told no, Trump turns to his favorite tactic, tariff threats. He recounts a call with Germany, bragging about threatening 25% tariffs if they do not comply, boasting that the amount is 7 times higher than what they would pay through drug price increases. He calls this a victory, but in reality, it is economic suicide. He threatens tariffs against any country that refuses to support the seizure of Greenland, yet this story is far bigger than Greenland itself. It is about Trump slashing American health care at historic levels to fund these meaningless military adventures, willingly sacrificing your well-being to feed his ego. At the same time, new alliances are forming in the Middle East without the United States, with a former Qatari prime minister discussing a strategic defense pact between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan that could include Turkey and Egypt, a durable military, economic, and political alliance that is not hostile to Iran and, most importantly, serves as a counterweight to the United States. America is increasingly finding itself in a far weaker position globally, excluded from the most important negotiating tables shaping the future of the world. Rahm Emanuel, the former U.S. ambassador to Japan, offered a sharp analysis of the comprehensive failure of Trump's Asia policy. China's greatest fear has always been isolation, and America's smart strategy in the past was to isolate the isolator by tightly aligning with Japan and South Korea. The historic Camp David Agreement under President Biden deeply alarmed China economically, strategically, and politically. But now, the only missing party in that trilateral relationship is the United States. What was once the most reliable ally has become the most unreliable one. China has grown increasingly aggressive toward the Philippines, a U.S. treaty ally, in the South China Sea, through which 40% of global maritime trade and 14% of the world's fishing supply pass. Instead of acting as a stabilizing force and organizing allies around a shared strategic vision, the United States has gone AWOL. And right on our doorstep, China and Canada have just signed a major economic agreement, essentially exposing U.S. presidential policy as that of an emperor with no clothes. While the U.S. made a move against Venezuela, it does nothing to offset everything else that is happening. The win-loss scoreboard for the United States under Trump is overwhelmingly tilted toward losses. Look at Venezuela. The U.S. removed one regime only to replace it with figures still tied to the old Chavista power structure, such as Delcy Rodriguez and Diosdado Cabello. It is like removing Trump only to install Stephen Miller in charge. Delcy Rodriguez, whose family is deeply embedded in authoritarian and KGB-style intelligence networks, is now opening bank accounts in Qatar. The first oil deal was struck with a Trump donor, and the money did not go into the U.S. Treasury, but into a private bank account in Qatar. This is not strategy. This is corruption. This is the open trading of political influence. If the Obama administration had done anything remotely similar, Republicans would have lost their minds. Under Trump, however, this corruption has been normalized. Trump calls a woman who won 70% of the vote illegitimate, while he himself failed to reach 50% in a free election. This hypocrisy lies at the core of his foreign policy. Personal interests and donor interests always come before national interest and democracy. When you look at the big picture, the incompetence of this administration's strategic thinking becomes painfully clear. In the very same week that the United States carried out military action in Venezuela simply to say, "We want oil," the European Union signed the largest trade agreement in its history with Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and Colombia, the major Latin American economies within the Mercosur bloc. At the same time, China surpassed the United States to become the largest economic trading partner for all of Latin America, with trade exceeding $500 billion. When you compare these three actions, the EU's long-term trade strategy, China's trade dominance, and America's short-term oil grab, which one will stand the test of time? Which one represents a coherent vision for the future? The United States comes in third. We get the bronze medal while everyone else takes gold and silver. That is how China and Russia are viewing us. Russia may be paying a price for its silence alongside a failed ally, but it clearly sees America's weakness. The U.S. fixation on short-term military actions to seize resources instead of building durable economic and political relationships reflects a deep decay in leadership thinking. We act as if everything comes down to one thing: using military force to get oil. Meanwhile, China and Europe are demonstrating a sharper, longer-term vision of where global relationships are headed, which brings us back to Greenland. Why would you pay for something you can already get for free? Denmark has told us plainly, anything you want militarily, fine. Trade, fine. Minerals, fine. So why pay full price plus international hostility when you can secure the same cooperation through diplomacy? It makes absolutely no sense strategically or economically. Trump, who prides himself on being a businessman, is attempting one of the worst deals in history. He wants to buy an asset we already have access to, and he is willing to destroy partnerships to do it. Worse still, Trump completely ignores how weakened Putin actually is. Russia reached Berlin faster in World War II than it has reached Kyiv in the current war. What was supposed to be a 4-week campaign in Ukraine is now entering its 4th year. Russia looks weak in Syria, Iran, and Armenia. Its military has shown itself to be ineffective. Putin is an emperor without a throne, and the only person who still seems to think he holds real power is Donald Trump. But the chaos is not limited to foreign policy. It is spreading directly onto the streets of the United States. We are witnessing the militarization of ICE and Border Patrol at an unprecedented level. They are dressed in military gear, moving into American cities like an occupying force. We have reviewed the footage carefully. The protests begin peacefully, with people simply demanding the right to live, the right to health care, the right to education. Then these agents arrive. They point guns at civilians. They fire tear gas at people standing on sidewalks. They have killed people, as in the case of Renee Nicole Good. They have shot others and then fabricated stories that do not match reality. They are terrorizing these communities. As former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel pointed out, Chicago police did not use tear gas on civilians for 30 to 40 years, yet these federal agents deploy it routinely. This is not law enforcement, it is deliberate provocation. This operation was not designed to enforce immigration law or secure the border. It was designed to provoke a political reaction. They want chaos. The country does not like chaos. And Trump is gambling that he can blame that chaos on Democrats or on protesters. But even his own political advisors are warning that this has gone too far. He is losing the American middle class. Americans support border security, but they do not support government agents attacking people at Home Depot, at schools, at places of worship, or on courthouse steps. These actions violate every rule of training and ethics. You now have officers who were severely injured, requiring dozens of stitches, being sent back into the field while psychologically unstable. No police chief in America would allow an officer in that condition to return to duty. The Trump administration is the architect of the chaos unfolding on American streets, and it is rapidly losing broad public support as a result. And while we are being pulled into these government-manufactured crises, the fundamental question is this: what is the purpose of government if not to lift up its people? What are we doing all of this for if we cannot afford health care, if we cannot buy homes, and if our children are not receiving a proper education? Consider this staggering statistic. 50% of our children cannot read or do math at grade level. While Trump tweets about windmills, about seizing Greenland, or about chasing a Nobel Prize, he has never once addressed student reading scores. Not a single Democratic or Republican governor has called an emergency meeting over this. We once had bipartisan consensus on accountability and improving outcomes, from Reagan through Clinton, Bush, and Obama, but now we are abandoning half an entire generation. If a child cannot read by third grade, life does not get easier, it gets exponentially harder. We cannot afford to waste a single child in the competition of the 21st century. Look at the so-called Mississippi Miracle, or more accurately, the Mississippi Marathon. Over 20 years, they climbed from 49th to 9th in reading scores by focusing on the science of reading, teacher training, additional support, and real accountability. If you can't read in third grade, you don't move to fourth. It worked. Graduation rates surged, scores doubled. Yet Trump is willing to spend double the cost of Greenland while leaving 50% of American children behind. Ford's CEO says they have 6,000 jobs paying over $100,000 a year they cannot fill. We lack carpenters, electricians, plumbers, problems that are solvable, high-quality problems if we invest correctly. We should be training 300,000 electricians right now to build the power grid of the future. Instead, we are burning resources on imperial fantasies. Every American wants a fair shot at home ownership and a good job. Give them the skills to become the electricians and builders of tomorrow. That is what we should be focused on, not an icy island. Finally, we have to look forward. The elections of 2026 and 2028 will be the most important elections of our lifetimes. For the first time, we will be voting on the future, not the past. The MAGA movement and the slogan, "Build Back Better," are, in their own ways, backward-looking. What we need now is a clear vision of what it takes to move this country forward. We need to build an education system, an energy system, and an economy where everyone has a place. Michigan, under Governor Whitmer, is doing extraordinary work on vocational education, proving that college is not the only path to success. In Chicago, students don't just graduate, they must leave with an acceptance letter from a college, the military, or a trade school. That is the standard that will move America forward, and every American can be part of that movement. But to get there, we must stop the current madness. We must stop Trump from turning allies into enemies and turning the military into a domestic police force. We must stop the corruption of foreign policy, where oil money flows into donors' pockets instead of the national treasury. The world is watching us. They are afraid, but they are also preparing to live without us. If we don't change course, we will wake up in a world where America is a lonely, poorer, angrier island, surrounded by prosperous alliances that we pushed away ourselves. This is no longer about partisan politics. It is about national survival. Do you want to live in a country that spends trillions to threaten allies while its children can't read? Do you want to live in a country where police fire tear gas at innocent people? If the answer is no, then you already know what you have to do. Stay awake, stay angry, and take action. Don't let them silence you. We have the power to change this, but time is running out. Look at the entire picture we've laid out today. From German troops landing in Greenland to quiet trade deals between Canada and China, from corruption in Venezuelan oil transactions to the collapse of our domestic education system, every piece is connected by one single thread: the failure of Donald Trump's leadership. He is gambling our future on hands he cannot win. He is selling off national interest for his own personal gain and for the benefit of his donors. But we are not hopeless. We see proof of what real leadership looks like from Mississippi to Michigan, where serious leaders are solving real problems. We see the resilience of our allies and the clarity of voices like Rahm Emanuel and other courageous lawmakers who refuse to stay silent. This fight is not over. It is just beginning. And our strongest weapon is the truth. We will continue exposing what they want hidden. We will continue calling out the absurdity, the corruption, and the incompetence of this regime. You are part of this resistance. Every time you share this video, every time you talk to a neighbor, every time you refuse to accept chaos as the new normal, you are fighting for the soul of America. Never stop fighting. Never let them wear you down. We will take this country back, step by step, vote by vote, community by community. Thank you for standing with us. Hit the subscribe button and help us reach 1,000 subscribers so our voices can no longer be ignored.